Well, we've officially made it to the end of the year. A lot has happened. We've been through a lot together. So I thought it would be fun to go on one more adventure together, go out for a hike, and I'll answer the questions that you guys asked me over on Instagram and here. So this is kind of like a little bit of fun to kind of sign off on 2023 and say hello to 2024. So let's go. Oh, and secure the cup. So we just pulled up to one of my favorite places to film here in Victoria. This is Thetis Lake Regional Park. Nice, quiet lake path, like a big loop path kind of thing. I've never really seen the whole thing because I usually only get a certain amount in and it takes so long to film whatever I'm filming at the time. So hopefully today we'll get a little further in. But that brings us to the first question that I got, which is, how am I liking living in Victoria compared to living in Alberta? They said Calgary, but I never actually lived in Calgary. And I'm absolutely loving it. It is taking a little while to get used to the winters that don't have snow. It's wonderful to be able to do this. Right now it's December 19th and I'm about to go for like a hike, which seems insane to not have to have big snow boots and a full puffy like kind of parka jacket on and all that kind of stuff to go for a hike in the middle of December. So, and just the general vibe of it here is fantastic. So I couldn't ask for much more. Now, we are in the Pacific Northwest, so it definitely can be a little bit gloomy and rainy for long periods of time, but I guess the trade-off for that is it's not minus 40 degrees Celsius and like 4 feet of snow, so I think I'll take it. And on a related note to that question, somebody else asked me what my favorite coffee place was in Victoria, and I'm gonna kind of cheat this question a little bit. The coffee that I have in here is my absolute favorite coffee, and it comes from about an hour north of Victoria in a place called Cobble Hill Drum Roaster Coffee Roastery, and they also have a nice little cafe that you can go to. But if I had to pick a place directly in Victoria, I'd probably say Discovery Coffee. They've also got Yanni's Donuts, which if you saw the episode where I made a donut commercial, I did it all in Yanni's Donuts because I was obsessed with their apple fritters. So yeah, that's probably my favorite. I like that I went to all the trouble to get this out of my backpack to show it to you. Like, look at this. This is my favorite coffee. It is really good though. Let's go. It was really nice when I was going through the questions that you guys left me. They were a really good mix of like personal and gear related and content related. One of my favorites was just kind of a really blanket question of like any advice that I could give for getting better quality content, whether that be photography or videography. And the biggest thing, honestly, is to just make sure that you're doing it regularly. I find myself in this position a lot where I find that my content suffers when I get, oh, I'm out of breath. It wasn't even that big of a hill. I have not been getting out enough. I find myself in this position a lot where I find that my content is kind of suffering just because I've been stuck in the studio too much, doing too much admin or too much editing and not actually out shooting, not taking my ideas and actually going and doing them. Now that could just be like practice, but I think it also comes down to frequency of the kind of action itself. If you don't use it, you lose it kind of situation. So just make sure that you're always creating something. How can I resist a sign that says viewpoint on it? It's funny how often the advice that I like to give to people is kind of seems like the most simplest thing. It doesn't always have to be something super complicated. Like, for example, one of the other questions that I've got here is someone said, as an old dog photographer, what would you suggest the first step to be in learning video? When I think of the difference between photography and videography, there are only really a few things that I think you need to keep in mind, especially if you're confident with your photography. You've already got a lot of the skills that you're going to need going into video. movement in your frames can be important, whether that be moving the camera or the moving subject. And then also just understanding the difference between photography and videography when it comes to shutter speed. So you typically want to follow the 180-degree rule, which means that you have your shutter speed twice the speed of your frame rate. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that you probably don't have the same latitude for editing in your videos as you do with your raw photos. So you just want to keep that in mind and make sure that you're making decisions on your exposure based on that. Other than that, and keeping those things in mind, it really just comes down to practice and preference to get better from one to the other. But all the compositional rules and those kinds of things can transfer over from photography to videography. So I had two questions that are kind of related. One person said, what moments did you love this year? What filled your heart? And then I had another person that said, where is it? What is the video you made this year that made you the proudest? And that's kind of, I say that they're related because me making videos is a big part of what I do. And so then those two things kind of get intertwined a lot. I don't know that I had a specific video that made me the proudest, but I tried a lot of new things this year. And the thing that I think made me proudest was actually asking for help. So I had people come out and help me shoot a couple of times. And then I also had an editor that helped me on a bunch of videos recently too. It really helped me to find out who I was as a creator, and it helped me to communicate what I needed or what I wanted out of my videos as well. And so I think that made me really proud this year to kind of try something new instead of kind of holding on to everything myself. But then there were also lots of things outside of being a creator that did that as well, like just getting to go on adventures with my partner a lot, getting to be outside in nature so much this year was so awesome. There was a lot of really high moments this year that I never got to experience in previous years as a YouTube creator or as a person, period. And it's funny, the more I think about that, the more I think that simple stuff like what I'm doing here today, going out, seeing the moss everywhere and the mushrooms, and just like stopping and taking a look at what's around me and taking in how beautiful it is, those are really the like most highlight moments of my year, probably. I thought I had answers for all these questions, and now they're just more is bubbling out than I had planned. Now, this next question is for the people who are kind of newer to the channel and maybe haven't heard me tell my story before, but it says, how did you get where you How did you end up where you are today, career and school-wise? I was a music producer, and so all my background, all my schooling, all my formal school anyway, is all in music. So I have a diploma, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's like 2 years of college. It's kind of like a half degree kind of thing in audio recording and music production, so audio engineering. And then I have another diploma in drum performance in music, and then I have another diploma in composition in music. So I have all of these fancy pieces of paper that say that I'm a music producer, I'm a musician, I'm a music composer. And then I ran a recording studio for quite a while, and then picked up a camera and kind of turned my whole life on its head by getting into YouTube and by getting into these kinds of videos. And that brings me to another question from a buddy, Omar, who actually has a new single out called Breakfast that you should go check out. He says, do you do any music production still? The answer is yes, but not very much. I'm basically part of one artist. I'm the secret hidden half of a children's artist by the name of Beppy. It's like goofy, silly children's themes, but the music itself, metal songs and country songs and jazz songs, and it's all over the place. I'm really proud of what we're doing there. We've been nominated for a couple of Juno Awards, which is kind of like the Canadian Grammys. Anyway, go check that out if you want to see the kind of music production that I'm doing nowadays. Kind of realizing now that I got turned around while I was filming and I never actually made it to that viewpoint that was advertised earlier. Oh well. One of the other questions that I pretty much always get asked if I ever do these kind of Q&A things is what I think the best piece of gear that was released this year was. And it's always the impossible question. There was another question that asked what the best lens that I thought of the year. My personal favorite lens that I got this year, actually now that I'm thinking about it, it wasn't released this year. I was going to say the 70-200 G Master version 2. You know what? That one was released the previous year, but the 16-35 G Master version 2 was released this year. I think. Anyway, but one thing that I am really excited about was the release of the Sony A9 Mark III because of the global shutter and kind of what that means for the future of cameras. And then that also brings up another question that says, what tech or equipment would you like to see in 2024? I think the one thing that I feel like I'm really missing in my personal workflow is a really good light control app. The Aperture Sidus Link app is decent. I've been using Colbor lights a little bit more lately and their app is like okay. I've used Nanlite in the past and like their app is okay as well, but nothing that like was so darn good that I'm like, yes, I want to use this. I'm also still on the hunt for the absolute perfect camera bag. Now, I know I'm not supposed to pick favorites, but I think one of my favorite questions that I got in this list was, does being a YouTuber make you more positive about gear? And this is a really complicated question that I think about a lot, and I put a lot of thought into it before I make videos or before I even choose which videos I'm going to make. So I could probably do a whole video on this, so let me know if you want me to do that. But the kind of long and short of it is, it makes me come across more positive about gear because, well, for a lot of reasons, but I can only make so many videos. So generally, I choose to make videos about gear that I am positive about, and I choose to not make videos about gear that I'm negative about, unless there's some purpose to that negativity, if I'm trying to warn people about something. But generally, most of the gear that comes through is like decent, so that's not usually the case. And so then when I'm choosing which gear I want to spend that time every week on, I generally am trying to choose stuff that I'm excited about. So then I probably come off like I'm positive about all gear because I'm usually choosing positive kind of subjects to tackle. Again, like I said, this is something that goes through my mind a lot. There is really no way for any human to be completely unbiased. So I try and do everything that I possibly can to make sure that I'm giving you all the information that I think is important. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Again, like I said, this is something that I think about probably more than I actually need to, and I could probably make a whole series of videos just talking about this. Real rapid round here. Somebody said, what's your favorite type of food? It has to be pizza. Lasagna is probably pretty close, but I think pizza. And then somebody else whose handle is the Duke of Pizza asked if I had a lot of pizza this year, to which the answer is yes. Especially when I was in New York, I definitely had a lot of pizza while I was there. The Duke of Pizza. That's awesome. Someone asked if I still do client work or YouTube only. Mostly, I just do YouTube. I do take on some client work here and there if it's something that really excites me, and that's kind of a privilege that I have. Some people maybe get the idea that people who are YouTubers who talk about photography and videography started out with client work and then moved into YouTube. I wasn't necessarily that way. I was a music producer before, like I mentioned, and then I hopped into the kind of YouTube world, and then I started getting some kind of client work. I've shot some music videos and some commercials and that kind of stuff, but it's always kind of been YouTube first. Luckily, I'm busy enough and I've been doing well enough with the YouTube side of things that I don't necessarily have to rely on freelancing or commercials or anything like that. I get to kind of do the projects that I want to do. I can also give good deals to projects that I'm excited about that maybe couldn't necessarily afford the typical rates of the people that they would want to work with. So it's a really nice thing for me. It's working out for sure. And I've pretty much got one big question left, but as you can probably tell, it's starting to rain here. I still didn't make it through like even a 16th of the path. So let's head back to the studio and I'll answer that last question. That's a little better. Now, this last question is kind of the big question in this time of year is, what are you going to change going into 2024? Most of the changes are kind of more big picture conceptual changes of like, what do I want the feeling, the vibe, the brand of my channel to be? So one of the things going into 2024 that I want to do more of is connecting with the audience. I have a tendency to focus probably a little bit too much on just the information, and then I lose the ability to actually connect with my audience, with you guys, the ones who come back and watch my videos. And I want to get back to that. I feel like I had a feeling of that when the channel was smaller and it was easier to directly connect with people, but I want to get a little bit more personality into my videos. I want to be a bit more like accessible to the people who are enjoying the content and who want to see what's going on for me. And with that, I do have a bunch of really cool ideas that are going to make 2024 content super exciting, but I don't want to give them away quite yet. One thing that I noticed in 2023 is that I started doing a lot less photography content, and I would like to get back to that. And with all that said, I want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's been watching my channel and supporting. It's such a privilege to be able to make videos and have such a positive community and positive feedback on my videos. I don't take it for granted at all, and I'm super excited to go into another year doing more, getting better, and trying to be even more of a resource for the people who are watching my videos. So again, huge thank you to you. I hope that you all have the most wonderful holiday season. I hope that you have a wonderful new year, and I'll see you in 2024. Now, where's my coffee? Should end all my videos like that from now on, just with a big chair spin. All right, bye.